I narrowed my focus, giving all my attention to my unmoving target. He stood there, a little more than 60 feet away, almost mocking me in how little fear he showed. My heightened senses took in everything around me, the flickering fluorescent lights overhead, the smell of stale beer and garlic from the fat man just a few feet to my left, the touch of lavender shampoo on the woman behind me, the squeak of feet on hardwood, the crash of wood on wood all around me. Vampire speed and strength were no good to me now. This situation demanded all my concentration and probably more grace than I had at my disposal. I drew back, took careful aim, stepped forward, and released. Gutter ball! Detective Sabrina Law raised her hands in victory as my last chance to pick up the spare and redeem my god-awful bowling game plummeted into the gutter and left the 7 pins standing without so much as a wobble. It mocked me with its lacquered maple arrogance. You win, I said, collapsing into one of the spinning plastic chairs as Sabrina recorded our final scores. She beat me solidly, but I made a good rally in that final game and was within 1 spare of a tie. Nice try, Black, but you can't be expected to compete with a woman who bowls for the Police Championship League every year. Sabrina sipped her beer with a smile. The sweet taste of victory. Ringer, I grumbled, reaching into my pocket for a 20 to cover the beer and slices we consumed while playing. Well, the slices she'd consumed. I'd been on a liquid diet ever since dying in the late 90s, so it was just beer for me. That little detail also explained my choice of bowling at Charlotte's only 24-hour bowling alley. I returned to our lane and started taking off my rented shoes. The disinfectant spray couldn't hide all the assorted smells from my heightened senses, so I drank more beer to keep from thinking about all the feet that had been in those shoes before me. So, Jimmy, Sabrina said after a minute or two of silence. Yeah? Why here? Well, look, we've been working together for a while now and hanging out, so I thought it would be nice to commemorate the date with a visit back to the place where we first met. That's sweet. You mean the first place I ever handcuffed you to a plastic chair, don't you? She pointed to a broken seat at a nearby table. 6 months had passed and they still hadn't replaced the chair. That case ended up with us battling an Archduke of Hell and saving a bunch of kidnapped children. Sabrina had been a fairly regular fixture in my life since then. Yeah, that's what I meant. I raised my cup of domestic beer and she clunked hers to it. Cheers. We sat in silence for a minute, drinking our beer and changing into street shoes. So, I said. At the same time, Sabrina leaned forward and said, Well? You first, I said. No, you go ahead. She pointed back at me. It's getting late, and I'm kinda done with bowling. You want to get out of here? I asked. She gave me a teasing grin. What did you have in mind? She was going to force me into making the first move, and I didn't know which moves were going to get me shot, and which moves might lead to something much better. Sabrina and I had been dancing around each other for months, ever since coming home from Fairyland, and I was still as clueless as ever. If given the choice between facing another Archduke of Hell or trying to figure out a woman's mind, I'd take the cage match in Hades every single time. A new voice from behind me butted in. Why don't we try solving a murder? I had never been so grateful and furious at my partner as in that moment. I turned around, and there was Greg Knightwood, the other half of Black Knight Investigations. He held my cell phone in one hand and my duster in the other. You forgot something when you went out tonight, he said, thrusting the phone at me. I stood, took the phone, and put on my coat. No, I didn't. I left it at home. That doesn't mean I forgot it. Why didn't you call Sabrina? I did. Apparently she left her phone somewhere as well. I glanced over at Sabrina, who was very studiously not looking my partner in the eye. Well, maybe my night had been going to be better than I thought. Until now, of course. My duster felt heavy, and I checked the pockets. Greg had loaded my Glock 17 into one pocket and my Ruger LCP backup gun into another. I had loops and sheaths sewn into the lining that held a couple of knives and 4 steaks, and they were all full too.